This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, here we are out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here on November the November the 12th, 2021. And I have a special guest on today for the third time. And I can't believe I've done this three times, but I've had this guest on November 12th all three times. Folks, I give you the director of the Benji franchise. I give you the wonderful, talented Joe Camp. How do you do, Joe?
I am great, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing fine, doing
It's
fine.
been a year since we've talked.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's been a couple years.
2 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
last year, whatever happened, something was prevented things from happening in 2020. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's kind of one I'd like to jump over.
Yeah, yeah. I love the green walls behind you. You got a beautiful background there.
Oh, good. Thank you. It's our study, and it, daytime it's okay. The lighting, I guess, for a Zoom thing, but
Hmm.
at night, uh, that lamp that's hanging from the ceiling back
Hmm.
there just blows everything out of the way, and I'm gonna have to figure something else out when I do one of these for night.
Well, you know what? Before I come on here, I looked because I'm just kind of in this cubby apartment. Last time you we chatted, I was not in this apartment. We sold the house I grew up in. I was in there for 47 and a half years, and the folks had to be moved into my grandparents' old house where there's less stairs because they're both terminally ill. So we ended up selling the home front. So I'm now in this little apartment until my brother and sister-in-law and I get a housing project going where they live upstairs and I live downstairs with my cat, you know. But I
Okay.
was looking through my boxes where I had stuff packed away, and here we go. Look what I found.
Uh,
God only knows. Yep. Yep. And you've signed right inside. Greg, thank you so much for all you do. God bless Joe. So there you go. Yeah.
that's terrific.
There you go. There you go. I guess first question off the bat, and I asked this question last time, but it needs bears repeating. Has your wife finally let you get in a couple of elephants?
No, I
Not.
think that's I think that's going to be a firm no for quite some time, and thank God for that too, because if she turned me loose and I was silly enough to actually try to do that, if you've ever been around them long enough to know how much poop they accumulate and how much hay they eat, it's not something that I need to be involved in, particularly now.
You know what? Elephants will just clear out. Uh, they will clear out crops pretty easy.
We don't have any of those, but our pastures are not big enough to handle two elephants. I don't think at a rate that they. Anyway, we won't go too deep into that.
So
They're
you.
wonderful. They're wonderful creatures. I really
Oh
do
yeah.
love them. It's just that you gotta be equipped to deal with that when you step off that ladder.
Well, I know you train, raise, and you also train horses. How long does it take you to properly train a horse?
I have no idea
No.
because I can't say that I've probably trained any so far, but
Oh,
uh,
well,
I have. I mean, I
yeah.
have my to my way of thinking. But I don't do training for a living. I don't train other people's horses and that sort of thing. I show ours off every once in a while, but it uh, if you start right, it can be as quick as you want it to be, really, because if you get their trust first, which I've come to believe over time that's the most important thing in creating the relationship, is to have the horse say to you, I trust you
Yeah.
thoroughly, completely, implicitly. Then everything changes, and they'll do anything in the world that you want them to do if they can just understand what it is. So then it becomes a situation of communication more than training, because if they understand what you want, they'll do it in a heartbeat. So it uh, so we've got all variations down there now. The ones that I'm closest to and do for feeding time and things like that are the ones who have you know the most training as such, uh, because we're together more,
Mm-hmm.
and we train with treats. We train with uh, what I call positive reinforcement. Most trainers train with negative reinforcement. They apply pressure until the horse does what they want, and then they release it, and the horse is supposed to take that as a reward. Oh, I don't know the horse that wakes up in the morning saying, well, somebody please apply pressure to me so that I can get a reward when you turn me loose. But my philosophy is I tell them, you do something I like and I'll do something you like. And they're very quick. I mean, I found that I can do way, 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 way more, with a treat than I've ever was able to do, with a stick or a thing or whatever, we started out with when people were saying that's the way you train a horse. But because they know immediately that they've done it right.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they just did got them a treat, and so they'll be happy to do it again. you know?
It's funny. I do the same thing with my cat. Problem is, my apartment never gets cleaned. My cat will not. He gets a treat, but doesn't seem to keep up with the cleaning here. So I don't know. I'm having a hard time doing training my cat.
Well, I have avoided that. We've had cats all along, but we don't ever try to train them. We just scratch them and let them purr, and then go do whatever they want to do, which they're going to do anyway.
Mine's over there
That's the way
asleep.
a cat is.
He's
Look at
over
me,
there
I'm
asleep,
lifting
but
up trying to see if I can see down on the floor, but I
yeah, he is down there curled up asleep on his mat. But you know what? When I shake that treat bag, he comes running.
Kathleen's Kathleen's youngest son uh, and his partner have a house full of cats. I think they've got four, and they they love them all. And we go down there, and they're all weird, and they're all their own cats, and they're not real friendly with um, they're just there and leave me alone, and everything will be fine.
Oh yeah. Well, we gotta show this off again. Look at this. I actually am surprised because I got like 3 boxes of books over there, and I found this in the first box packed away. Like I said, this is my temporary location, although this temporary location I've been in since 2020. So I'm like, we're supposed to be in a new place, but the folks and COVID and everything like that kind of put everything on the back burner. The soul of the horse. Oh, there you go. Yep.
This one is now in its 17th printing, I'm proud to say.
17th printing. There you go.
And that one I just picked up was actually the very first one, theoretically, off the presses. our publisher at Random House sent a copy with a note to me saying it was the first one, and that's the first one of the first book, which we were incredibly excited about, because we didn't know what was going to happen with this, and we were going to have to go door to door with it or what, and all of this happened in just almost overnight. A good friend up near you in Panhandle of Idaho has done a lot of writing. He was involved in writing a lot of the what's the gosh I 400 books, with the same title, except for I can't remember the name of the things now, but he wrote one for dogs, he wrote one for cats, he wrote one for several others, and they all got really, really big responses and so forth. And so he had an agent in New York, and he ultimately, I was moaning to him about my experience trying to find an agent to represent the soul of a horse, and I called him one night and I said, I got this guy in New England who wants to go right now, and he wants to do it right. He doesn't want to talk anymore. He wants to just do it. He wants to take this thing and go do it. I've never heard of him, and I can't find anything really good on him. Does that sound weird to you? And he said, Joe, do me a favor. Sit down, shut up. I'll call my agent in New York. He wouldn't call him earlier because he said he's a real New York kind of guy, and you're not. So I don't think y'all would get along very well. And as it turned out, we did, because he called him, and within 24 hours, I had sent stuff to him. He had loved it. He in fact sent a note back to the friend in Idaho saying, Joe Camp is a genius. I was just like, heart's beating, everything's going where it's supposed to go. And he was out with it in a week to 22 different publishers in New York, and including the top two in the country, Random House and whatever the other one is, escapes me now, but and those were the last two. He did a whole deal with them, where you auction and go back and forth, negotiate and whatnot. And those were the last two on this particular book, and Random House wound up winning that battle. And so it went from we had no clue what we were going to do with it to it being in the hands of the top publisher in the country, and going out and doing incredibly well, and saving horses and changing the lives of horses all over the planet. So it was an exciting time. If you've seen the movie Julie and Julia,
I have actually, yes.
I can't watch that movie without tearing up at the end, when finally, after 47 years of trying, her book, Julia Child's book, finally got printed and published, and she had it in her hands. And how well I understood that. So it was very cool.
Well, you are a genius when you stop and you look at the process of getting Benji to the big screen. I know we've talked about that in the last two interviews, but I mean, that was a process. This was a movie that the studios weren't quite into, and then, of course, when it becomes a hit,
an understatement, of course. The studio said, "Get out of here."
yeah, but it's one of those movies even like watching Benji, wake up and he goes around the house and around the roof or out the window or all that stuff, and then throughout the neighborhood and all the people he encounters on his little journey, you know. I love all those details, you know, and it takes a lot of work to structure that out and know what you're going to do. I think Benji holds up very well with that. So um,
I don't know. I think it was after. It's been, yeah, not 2 years ago. We completely remastered it to high definition and widescreen,
mhm.
and it's on. I think it's on Prime, on Amazon Prime right now. And there's a couple that are on Netflix. I think there's three on Amazon Prime. Benji the Hunted is on Disney Plus, and so all of them are out there right now and viewable, including the ones that Brandon, my youngest son, did in 2018.
Mhm.
He wrote and directed a sort of a remake. You'd never know it was if you hadn't, if you weren't intimately involved or aware of the first one. But he did a really good job. He did a really good job, and I know that one's on Netflix right now. And For the Love of Benji, which is the second one, is on Netflix right now, and it's been remastered as well, and they look really good. So they look like they were shot yesterday instead of 40 years ago.
I would have been 2 years old the year Benji came out. So I was two in 1974 when that was released.
Yeah,
So
it didn't get up to you though. 75 was the big year, so you were three.
three. Yeah. So are you still in touch with Cynthia Fitz-Smith? I think you had mentioned that she was still around. I would go try to get her on the show here.
Yeah, she was, the last time, and not since we talked last, I haven't talked to her, but I had recently, when we talked the last time, and she hadn't done anything movie wise
Hmm.
other than this, but we've talked, you know, maybe 3 or 4 times, or corresponded one or the other in email, and it's I haven't seen her face to face in quite a while, so that would be a shock for both of us, I suspect.
It must be pretty cool that she would walk away from acting, but she's got this hit film, you know? I mean, she can be satisfied that she's in a film that is beloved by millions and millions and billions of people.
Yeah, it's that's true with all of us, actually.
Hmm.
I marvel at the fact that I can pretty much drop down on the street corner anywhere in the free world and say one word and put a sparkle in somebody's eye and a smile on their face, and that that is a pretty good feeling and tells me that it has certainly been a worthwhile go. And people ask, why is there a difference between Lassie and Benji? And I say, what I have to say to that is that people like Lassie, people love Benji, because Benji is an experience in the first degree. Benji is the three-dimensional character in that movie. The people are
Yep.
props, and your heart and soul is with that dog. And we were shooting for the emotion and the acting ability of the dog, so that you were following along, and you were internalized with that dog, just like you are with any hero of any movie. And when he was sad and things weren't going well, you were feeling it, just, you know, and so many of the dog movies, I think probably basically all of them up until that point, were they were the dog was a prop,
Yeah.
and the people, your heart was with the kid who has to get rid of the dog because he's eating the chickens or something.
Hmm.
And that's there had never been one that emotionally puts you in the heart and soul of the dog for the entire duration of the movie. It, and I think that made, a huge difference. And and I think the early critics were so unaware of this that they had their little books out that said, this is how you do a movie, how you write a review on a movie is what about the plot, what about the director, what about the actors, and so forth. And we actually had reviews the first few weeks that it was out somewhere that did not even mention that there was a dog involved.
Oh, wow. How
I
could they
mean,
miss
just
that?
totally going. And so I couldn't figure out what the deal was for about a week. And we finally said, all right, this is what we're going to do. Because Dallas, did really well, which is where we lived at the time. And, we had been wooing the press more or less for a year and a half as the movie was made and bringing them out to the set and doing all that kind of stuff. And so they were really prepared for the concept that this was the dog was a three-dimensional character and the people are the props. This was turning the tables on that thing. And so we got great reviews in Dallas. And so the minute we moved out of Dallas, and we weren't doing a national opening or we weren't doing even a regional thing, we were just groping for trying to play where we could play that would had the quality of the theater that we got in Dallas. And because we felt that we needed a real good theater because we were unknown movie house, unknown dog, unknown everything when we go into a new market. And so we were trying out the advertising marketing program and all of that other stuff. So we were just going wherever, went to Amarillo and went to here and went there. And by the time we had booked Houston, I understood what the problem was. And there were two critics in Houston and one at each of the newspapers down there. And, and, and they were both out of New York. They had both been hired away from one of the papers up in New York. And I said, oh my gosh, we're going to get killed by, New York critics in this movie. And so what we did is we got Frank, the trainer, and his wife and Benji, and went to Houston and hired a PR house in Houston to do all these things. And we had a luncheon for the printed press at a restaurant, at one of the nice restaurants in town. And Benji was at the head of the table. And Frank was on one side and I was on the other. And then we had those two critics right next to us and then other print media going down the table. And Benji had a napkin on him, and Benji was eating a barbecued steak, and Frank, his trainer, was eating steak tartare. So the whole thing looked kind of weird. But I'm sure you've seen enough of Frank before that he can hold he can hold court anywhere. He's a great storyteller and so forth. And so the whole object was, and we got it down really well by the time we got to Houston between the two of us, because they would always go to him and say, what is your favorite movie that you've ever done? This one right here, because this is the hardest job that I've ever done. And Joe can tell you about that. And so he'd throw it over to me and I'd go for the juggler with, the hard sales points. And it went great. And that's where the scrapbook turned the tables back again. They just were crazy. And first off, they had met the dog and not love that dog when you're face to face with him and whatnot. And he, they gave really, really good reviews on the thing. And you were on television and did a whole bunch of stuff. And what that did was start a 120 market tour that we went all over the country. with the films. It's wherever we were playing, we would try to get there on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday prior to opening on a Friday or a Saturday in that market. And there were side effects all the way through. And it's really interesting because, you know, all these things, you know, God would put these obstacles in our path that would cause us to, like a marble, you know, like a pinball machine or something, shooting over to here. And that happened to be where we needed to be for this to happen and for that to happen. And, you know, that was happening throughout the tour, actually, wherever we were going. And we'd get canceled out of one and go to another because of it. And that's where we had to be for this to happen. And it was an amazing time because and we were all over the ballpark with playing. You know, I mean, we were very careful with the major markets, but you know, if we could get like Baltimore, you know, we played Baltimore in August of that 1974 year. That Baltimore was actually the one that told us we finally had it. We had the program, we had the advertising and all of that, because we were in 3 theaters and we set records in 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, but it went that way. But what we were doing every weekend on 74 and in 75, we were in the trades with Benji opens Boston, Philadelphia, bam, bam, record set, da, da, da. And so it wasn't like you opened one week, it's all big, and then you're off to the next movie. And we were there every weekend because that's the way we were playing it. And we couldn't afford to go out and play the whole country at one time. And it's a good thing because we wouldn't have had all of this going for us, you know, if we did. And you know, Jaws was the, you know, 1975 competition.
Yep.
And we did way better against Jaws in the minds of most of the press than we did really. I mean, per theater wise, we probably had as good a rating as Jaws in many cases, but not depth wise, you know, because we were in like 400 or 500 theaters at one time and they were in 1,500 or 2,000 at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they could stay there as long as they wanted to because they had the squeeze on the theaters and so forth. But it just, you know, it worked. We went into Detroit and there was one of these political cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what section it was in. It seemed like it'd have to be in the entertainment section, but it looked like a political cartoon. Except you remember the artwork for Jaws, the girl swimming along the top,
Yep.
and the shark was coming up.
Yep.
This was the shark swimming along the top, and the dog was coming up. and I still got it somewhere in a scrapbook, somewhere in the garage, because it was so cool, you know. But that was the, you know, what they were thinking out there because of the hammer, and we came out of nowhere. Nobody had ever heard of us, and suddenly everybody did. And so, you know, it was a well managed thing by, you know, our man upstairs. He,
mm-hmm.
you know, he set it up, and we just followed the path.
Absolutely. Yeah, they say God works in mysterious ways. He does.
And he never feels obligated to tell you what he's doing.
No, I'm still trying to figure out what he's doing with me. I was gonna say, huh?
I said, I hear that.
Yeah. Through Benji and For the Love of Benji, Oh Heavenly Dog, Benji the Hunted, were they all the same dog or was they different dogs?
No, the original Benji was 13 when he was doing the movie.
Okay.
So he did the original movie, and that was it. And it was kind of a sad thing, but an interesting little side note that the end of the summer in 1975, we had one market left or 1 day left in Boston, and I had to be back in Dallas for some reason. And so I don't remember what the days were. Let's say it was Friday, and they're racing me to the airport, and we're in a limo, and Frank is there, and Benji always got into my lap when we would get in the car and go somewhere because Frank didn't have one. He just he's too big. He did not have a lap. And so Benji would lay there in my lap. And there was something that came over me that day racing to the airport. And I actually wished that we not make it, but the traffic in Boston apparently is renowned, especially going to the airport in the afternoon. And it was terrible traffic. And I thought there was a good chance that we wouldn't make it. And I lobbied for that. But we did make it. And while he was laying there in my lap and I was scratching his ear and whatnot, I had this feeling that this would be the last time I saw him. And sure enough, when they got through in Boston, they went back to Indiana, which was Frank's home originally. They lived in California, but they went back there, and he didn't say why or what they were doing over there. I just knew he was there. But come to find out, he was at Notre Dame with Benji checking on a tumor that he had. And they went in and operated. It was cancerous, but they got it. But he wound up dying from pneumonia in recovery. And it was like losing a kid.
Well, you went on to do For the Love of Benji. Talk about the process of getting a new dog, because you really what between the two movies, I find it hard to believe it's not the same dog. So
that's so interesting, because if you ever set them side by side, there is a lot of difference. I mean, that the key points are there, and I think probably because all of them are coming from the heart to your heart, that there's an inclination to blur the picture itself and accept who he was, because that second Benji, Frank had a whole raft of quote lookalikes, because that's what a trainer does when there was one shot in the original Benji that wasn't the dog originally named Higgins.
Okay.
And that was a shot when the kids are out in the yard and playing with him and throwing a red ball.
Okay.
And the real Benji could care less about chasing a ball. That's insane. Give me something intellectual and I'll take it.
He likes to have barbecue steak.
Exactly. And so one of the shots was one of the kids throws the ball and Benji goes and gets it and brings it back. And that one piece in the entire movie is the only one that is not Benji. That was what Frank liked to call Benji's wife.
Okay.
I can't pull her name up right now, but there was, I think that there was the possibility of puppies through her at one point, but I don't believe that's where the second Benji came from. Frank claims that the second Benji was the daughter of the first.
Okay.
And the timing and all just doesn't work for that. It was when they were there, what they were doing. But he had, when we were shooting Humps, the camel movie, there are a couple that I wish we had never made. That's one of them. But he would have all of these puppies, all about the same age, probably, in the 3-month range, 4 months old, on buckets, sitting on these buckets out there, and he'd go down the row and was teaching them stuff and whatnot whenever the things were going on the set of the movie outside. And I would go over and just stand and watch him because I was looking for that focus that reached out and grabbed me, and
Mm-hmm.
I could care less about how much one could do because I knew that would come. But I needed, and sure enough, she did come out of that group, and she actually, on her first day of filming, she was 11 months old, and just the age difference between her and Benji Higgins, because he was, I want to say he was 17 or 18 when he died. And you can see in the second dog, over time, if you compare a shot from For the Love of Benji, particularly in the one that was shot early
Mm-hmm.
in the filming of it, with Benji the Hunted, same dog, but in Benji the Hunted, she looks a whole lot more like Higgins Benji than she did when she was 11 months old. And she age. Look at us. It changes you. And,
We're still holding 39.
huh?
We're still holding 39.
Yeah, I need to. I've reached the point of even being able to laugh at that anymore.
So it was the same
Me
dog
and Clint
from.
Eastwood have a lot more in common than I want to admit.
Oh wow, yeah, Clint's still going too.
I know it. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Have you seen that last movie?
Cry Macho. No, I missed that one, but he is still going in his 90s, still making movies, and God bless him.
And acting in them.
Yep, yep. So you had the same dog from For the Love of Benji, Oh Heavenly Dog, and Benji the Hunted.
Correct.
Oh, okay,
And all
okay.
the stuff that was on television, all those television specials were that same dog, number two, we
Mm-hmm.
called it. And then Benji Off the Leash, which
Uh-huh.
which was done in '03 and '04, was a new dog that we went on a national search to find one in a shelter because over 1 million dogs had been adopted because of the original Benji being adopted. And so we wanted to do that again. And so we had press following us all over the country into shelters and whatnot, and adopted 3 and had Benji, college or something for a week, and let the press play around with that for a while, and had a trainer come in and to get some. I knew which one was going to get it from the minute I ran into her in the shelter down in Gulfport, Mississippi, because she was great. She was absolutely great, and she was so smart, and she picked things up so quickly, and she was so loving and giving and everything. And one of the other dogs that we had adopted wound up being, the comic relief in that movie, Lizard Tongue. And so he actually was adopted among the 3 when we were out going. And Shaggy was his real name.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the number 2 did almost all the work.
So you had a lot of the same cast in For the Love of Benji. You got people, they got everybody back, and talk about their interactions with the new dog.
I mean, it was fine. They accepted it, and by the time they got to the new dog, virtually as good from a methodology and a trick point of view as the original was, and that all of that went really well, and it was a different Tiffany as well.
Yes,
small role in that movie, and I mean, dumb as a tack. And that's why it was a small role. It got smaller in editing, but it's yeah. And so that was her first one, and she was always. I mean, Benji Higgins became Benji, you know, for the last, you know, couple of years of his life, and nobody ever called him Higgins anymore after that. But number two was Benji from the get-go, because by the time we were ready to make a selection, I knew who it was going to be, and I just went up to Frank and I said, "That's good." And so he started calling her Benji from the get-go. And it's interesting because he what he was calling her prior to that moment was Benjine. He had all of them tagged with some kind of a name like that was close, so that they would have the ring in their ear if they got chosen, and it was Benji. And I don't know how or where that got started, or what it was, but if you go to like Wikipedia or one of those things and research Benji and Benjine and whatnot, there's some real harebrained stuff on there. And one of them was that this dog's name was always Benjine, was never Benji. And it's, of course, not so. But it also, and for a while, I got really upset with some of that and some of the stuff that, that I supposedly did or didn't do and that. And I'd go in there and change it. And I finally said, this is stupid. I got better things to do with my time than worry about all that.
Yeah. And of course, Higgins, of course, is well noted as the name of one of the characters in Oh Heavenly Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, Oh Heavenly Dog is a film that is actually, and I know this is probably a surprise to you, but it's actually my favorite Benji movie.
Yeah,
Is
you
Oh
told me
Heaven.
that. You told me.
Yeah. We're supposed to celebrate the anniversary for the film last year, but 2020 was kind of a mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, Oh Heavenly Dog celebrated its 40th anniversary last year, and Oh Heavenly Dog, I just marvel at it because and again, I know I pointed things out that you never get to hear about this film, about because I told you in Death what I liked about the film, and I loved, like I said, that opening shot of the rain coming down and Big Ben, and it just kind of pans back, and I just love it. And it comes straight to the street, and you see the red umbrella come by, and Chevy Chase there sneezing into his handkerchief, and so the only red umbrella in there was Chase's, and I enjoy Oh Heavenly Dog. In fact, you see a lot of even in the bad reviews, critics have noted how smart that dog was. Like the dialing of the phone with a pencil, stuff like that was just great to watch. And he it must take a lot of patience to train the dog to do that.
Well, a lot of that stuff is actually easier than trying to
Okay.
get the right emotion, for
Mm-hmm.
that moment. And I was harebrained crazy over all of that. It had to be just like it, if it was me in that dog suit getting treated or whatever, being faced with whatever Benji was being faced with, how would I feel? And I wouldn't stop until we could get that feeling coming back from the dog. I mean, short of, shooting at him or something. And and so it was that was often very, very difficult. I mean, there's a shot in Benji the Hunted where, you know, Benji walks away from the cubs that are asking him, to stay because they've lost their mother and they don't have anybody to take care of them. And Benji just finally just turns and walks away. He says, this is not. I'm a dog. You're cats, and I can't do that. And one of them crawls out of the nest and follows him, a little bitty thing, and follows him over. And he finally turns around and stops and just looks down at it. And it looks, I mean, it's looking way up because this thing was not any bigger than that. And what we needed is one expression that said to that dog, please, 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 don't leave me. And we were doing everything in the world, and you can imagine, because one of the things that we always did, and this is another little thing that most people don't understand, you will, but we always shot Benji on short lenses. I mean, unless there was an effect to get a long telephoto of him running through the woods or something. But when we were working in dramatic scenes, we were always up really close because the lenses were short, so that because you can feel it. There's a difference when you're way up here in real life than if you were back looking through a telescope. You feel the surroundings more and so forth. And so that was, and the crew hated me for that, because they, just put a long lens on that thing and back away and everybody can go, have a cigarette or something. Well, but we had 9 people all piled around the camera, the focus puller and the light always had to be there right by the lens for Benji's eyes. If you go through and watch those movies, there's always the highlight in his or her eyes. And so that was, what we were doing with this little cub. And we were making, there's 6 or 8 of us just piled around the camera on our bellies and whatnot, and trying to crack sticks and make noise and blow whistles and just what's going to cause this cub to give the right emotion. And when long past take 1, take 2, we just turned it on and started rolling. And the script gal was supposed to take a note of where we were on the count, in the vicinity at least, when I said, yes, that was it. And at one time we were all over there and we were doing things and doing stuff and whatnot. And the cub literally was sitting up and just looked, and you could see her eyes, or its eyes, starting to close. And she just fell over, boom, asleep. So we had to pick her up and wake her up and start all over again. But we finally got it. And if you go back and look at that piece of the film, it'll, with that at all in mind, it'll blow you away, because we must run through, 40 minutes of film for that one, which was maybe on screen for 3 or 4 seconds.
So are we making progress of getting a Heavenly Dog on Blu-ray?
I, unfortunately, all the other ones I have a very large say about. That one was Fox, and Fox from the beginning. And so all of those decisions get made over on that side. I've tried to talk them into that, and I've tried to talk them into, I made an edit on it one time to take the worst of the things that were making it a PG out, and tried to convince them to do that so that we could put it right into the batch with all the other, make it a, more of a Benji movie than it was originally promoted. But they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to mess with it, and they still don't. You know, that's when we went to remaster those first two. We tried to talk to somebody over there, and in fact, Brandon was in cahoots with Fox on some deal right then, and so he got into it underneath and tried to make something happen, and they just didn't care.
It's funny because with all the shots of London, and especially like stuff like the art gallery and the way you use art in that movie would look
Art,
great. Yeah, like
art.
art. Well, like even when they go into the murder site, for example, and I love the lighting, and the music that's going on as it shows shots of the various art pieces, and all the odd shapes. And I love stuff like that, all those little details, and it carries me through the movie, just the look of the film. I think the movie is great to look at, like like even when it goes to the art gallery, it shows all these shots of these odd pieces that people are looking at, and I loved how you captured all that, so I think Benji would look great on Blu-ray, just from just what you shot, where the right from the Big Ben rainy opening right
Yeah.
down to when they're walking off into the sunset, Um, I think it's a great looking film. Yeah, there's some PG situations in it that it had some struggle with. It was definitely a different tone than the first two, but I find myself genuinely enjoying it, and Elton John had some great tunes in it, and of course I've always liked Chevy Chase. Now I often hear it's been out there they said to be difficult to work with. Did you find him difficult to work with?
Oh, just the opposite. I
Yeah.
was totally surprised because and there was all the drug stuff talked about, and whatnot, and so I was nervous. I was really, Burt Reynolds was who we wanted for that part originally,
Hmm.
and I don't know if I told you the story or not,
I
but
think yeah.
he came back and said, "Okay, I want to do this thing," after we had signed the deal with Chevy Chase. So it was frustrating. But no, he came on the set and did everything he was asked to do. Stood out in the rain or the fake rain for you know hours at a time, and he was not a problem ever,
That's great to
ever.
hear.
You know,
That's great to hear.
and he was good on the. We of course had him back on the voiceover stuff uh, later, and he was all good with all of that. But he has said to others apparently
Hmm.
that it was one of his biggest mistakes is making that movie, which
Well,
is
you could have
whatever.
had Burt Reynolds, you know. I don't think. Oh,
There is no nuance with Burt Reynolds. There is
yeah,
nuance with Chevy. But it
yeah.
was,
I like
oh,
Burt too. Yeah.
he was a tale that I loved. Is that we were just having pretty much misery with uh, I had it. What's her name? I just forgot it.
Jane Seymour.
Jane Seymour. And they were out in the rain doing it. It was when the day that they ran into each other and boxes
Uh-huh.
flew, all of that, and pouring down rain and all the stuff. And we were doing things over and, retakes and whatnot. And she just, I said, we got to do this in the room. And he just got down in her face and said, "You're making the big bucks now. That's why. Man up." And turned around and walked away or something. Words to that effect.
Hmm.
And, I liked him a whole lot more after that. So,
Well, that was a big year for Chevy because he had Caddyshack that year. He had Oh Heavenly Dog. He had Seems Like Old Times. That was a pretty big year for Chevy. So yeah. I'm going to tell you the performance that really stood out to me in that movie was Omar Sharif. I'm going to tell you, he really gives it all when he looks at Benji and he knows something's up. And I love it because so many movies will play that up to a juvenile extent, which is one of the problems I've often had with family movies is when villains are played at such a juvenile effect. With our Omar Sharif, you believed him. And when he looks at Benji, he knows something's up. He can't pinpoint it, but he knows something up. Just the way he looks at Benji, the way he interacts. Omar really brought it to the table in that movie. I loved his performance in this.
Yeah, yeah, it was great, and I liked him a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
My
Yeah.
wife did because he lived up to his womanizer back during the shooting, but we would have dinner and just talk. I mean, he's one of the few actors that I have worked with that is really a wide and deep person. I mean, we talked about all kind of stuff. He travels all over the place doing his bridge tournament things and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a subject you could come up with that he wasn't ready to engage on and know a lot about and so forth. And we had a great time. There was another one on another movie who I love, and my wife talked him into coming through Dallas for a surprise birthday party for me because he was on his way from
Oh,
somewhere like that.
yeah, you had mentioned this George Kennedy.
Oh, don't say the name. Okay, yeah, but we just didn't have anything to talk about. He did do that. He came to that party and had 3 or 4 hours in Dallas and used him to come do that, but it just dried up, and Omar, conversation never dried up with Omar ever. He
No.
he was cool.
Memories of Stuart Germain, who played, of course, Mr. Higgins.
That one is. I mean, the memories are all great. He was excellent, but I had forgotten his name. So I'm
I'm
glad you.
just looking at it on here, because I was trying to find him because um, he was funny in the movie. He had a nice presence to him.
Yeah, and you made a statement earlier that makes me feel good, and uh, that was that what we have tried to do all the way along is make adult movies that kids will enjoy,
Yep.
not the reverse.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even like the term family movies because they automatically get put into the kiddie movie uh,
Exactly. Yep.
classification. And the instruction I gave in the original movie when we were working on music with the composer, was because the first thing he came back with was a whole bunch of doopy doopy doop doopy doop doop doopy dee, and I said, no, you move me with your music and leave the kids to me. They'll be there and they'll be loving it and they don't have to be talked down to.
Oh, I agree. I
And
agree.
and that is what we've always tried to do with all of these movies. And I was glad that you found that in Heavenly Dog too, because
Oh, I loved it too, going back to Higgins, where Omar Sharif is at the post office, like, stop that animal, stop that animal. Higgins is like, stamps with animals? Yes, but you don't have to shout about it. And of course, Alan sues as the cab driver. I love the whole bottle cap. My car became a bottle cap. And of course, he turns into a cat. He comes back as a cat. He says, "Avoid the rats. I tried one, but they're not very good."
He's a funny guy too. He really is.
Yep. And yeah, Barbara Lee Hunt, who of course 8 years prior was in Hitchcock's Frenzy. So you had somebody work with Hitchcock in that movie. Was Chevy's secretary in the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really like Oh Heavenly Dog. Like I said, I think it would look great on Blu-ray. Just the scenery alone, would be great, Yeah. So is your son gonna make another Benji movie?
I don't know. He just got finished making one for Netflix over in Italy that
Mm-hmm.
was not a Benji movie. It was a coming of age kind of movie, and they're coming down for Thanksgiving.
Oh,
And,
that's awesome.
he's going to bring. It's not the final cut, but it's close to the final cut. He's going to bring a copy of that when he comes, so we'll get to see it for the first time.
Mm. Well, I know last time we talked, I know I watched the Double MacGuffin, and it's always great to see a young Lisa Whelchel in that movie. And like I watched her Facts of Life, and here here she is in this. I love the fact too. And again, we've talked about this. You're able to make movies for families that don't talk down, and even with Double MacGuffin, you had this very serious atmosphere, but you were able to draw in all audiences. And I really appreciate that sensibility about you because there's filmmakers even today that haven't learned that. Like I think the Muppets do well at it because the Muppets, they appeal to everybody. But there are some, like I think we've got two or three family films at the theater I have no interest in just because of the way they're advertised. Whereas you have really tapped into what works for kids, but also what works for adults. And I really appreciate that about you as a filmmaker.
My philosophy basically is if it works for adults, it's going to work for kids.
Mm-hmm.
If you know where you're going with the whole thing. I mean, there are movies that are adult movies that you don't want kids to see. There are others that they wouldn't matter. They wouldn't like them anyway. But just they're people. And some are younger and some are not.
Absolutely. Well, I see you're starting to get some workers in there in the background there, and I'm like, we'll have to cut this short, but I'm going to showcase this again so that anybody that wants to make a purchase, God only knows, can you trust him with the secret? Yes, you can. There's your book right here. I got the beautiful signed copy, and of course, hold up your book there with the Soul of the Horse. Show that on here and tell people where they can get these. Yeah,
Where am I?
there you
There's
go.
the Soul of a Horse. This is Born Wild, the sequel to the Soul
Oh,
of a
there
Horse.
you go. There you
And
go.
it's the story continuing from there. And while we're selling things, teach your dog
Oh, nice.
to do what Benji does in the movies.
Oh,
And all
look
of
at
these are
that.
available on Amazon. Some of them are in bookstores. Born Wild, The Soul of a Horse, and God Only Knows are in bookstores. But
I'm
it's
wait I'm waiting for you to do the elephant version.
well, Brandon was working on this. There's a book, and I can't remember the name of the book now, but it's about an elephant, and I had read it many years ago.
Uh-huh.
And at one time, he was talking to somebody. I don't know, remember now if it was the studio or the author or what about doing something movie wise for that book. I said, "You do that, you got to hire me as the handler. That way, I can go and maybe get it all out of my system."
You can,
But
that's where you try to convince That's where you try to convince your wife that we need elephants. And this is where she says, "No, put the brakes on."
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
I've had two good ones. They're just, I'm so blessed because
Yes.
my first wife died in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she was fantastic. The second one was fantastic. And who gets to have that twice? And it's really,
God has blessed you.
oh yeah,
God has blessed you.
there's no way around it. And,
Absolutely.
uh, and all I wish I could do is, as the years pass on, I would like to have the knowledge a little faster so that I can get it done.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your son and his family coming up, and it was wonderful having. I find it funny. November 12th, 3 years. We've talked this the third time on the same day. I couldn't have planned that, It was just, it just fell into
Now,
place
now,
then.
now you'll work hard. Both of us will work hard trying to make that plan happen somehow.
There we go. There we go. But Joe, it was wonderful having you come on here and talk to me today. It's always a pleasure, and I appreciate what you do. And
I appreciate
absolutely.
what you do. I mean, I appreciate you being so into whatever it is that you're, interviewing for.
Mhm.
And it's hard for me to fathom 128 of those a year that are that good. Is that it has the same person behind it that I'm talking
Well,
to.
you're number 512 in total. That's how many of these I've done since 2015, and I just matched my record from 2017. So I'm gonna go up over that, and I just really enjoy doing it, and like especially going back and reflect on movies I grew up with. Like we watched Benji, particularly Benji, a lot when I was young because that was be on television. I think we saw it at the drive-in movie theater, you know. So it was always great to reflect back and look at these films, So
Got to go check a couple of them out, now because they're all out there on, somewhere at Amazon and Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever. But those two that got remastered are amazing to me
hmm
because I've been looking, at the square. What was on the DVDs even was
hmm
it was not the true picture because it was working off of the television masters that we had done 35 years ago or whatever it was. And there was no such thing as widescreen at that time.
Oh, I love the widescreen prints, and you just get a better idea of everything that's on that screen when it's widescreen. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I
just
won't mind. No, yeah, I'd love to.
just state your name and that you're the director of the Benji franchise and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Hi, this is Joe Camp. Here we go again. This is Joe Camp, and you are listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise, and we just got through with a great interview. That he's so good. So whatever he's doing right now, you're gonna love it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you and I appreciate having you on here. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We had ours last month. I don't get that. Canada has we have ours in October. You guys have yours in November. I'll
Well,
never
it's closer to England, and they stopped there first. Shame on.
I guess, but have a wonderful Thanksgiving. God bless you and thank you so much for a third time around on the show.
And do stay in touch and let's do it again.
Absolutely, absolutely. You take care.
Appreciate it.
Whip those workers into shape there. I see those what
Yeah, they've been stretching it out. We need to be done with this work. I can tell you.
Benji would have had that done.
That's right.
He
That's
would have
right.
had that done. Take care. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye.